My name is Madison. I am 35 years old, and I live in San Francisco, California, with my 12-year-old daughter, Lily. 3 years ago, my life split into two parts, before and after the accident that took my husband away. Since then, I have carried every burden alone, but I've also discovered a strength I didn't know I had. I am not just a mother. I am the sole provider, the protector, and the voice that stands for my child. I work in trading. Every morning, I wake up early, open my laptop, and stare at the endless patterns of green and red candles rising and falling. Trading demands discipline, and in many ways, it has shaped me into someone stronger. I have rules I never break: limit the risk, trust the decision, control the fear. It's a demanding career, but it allows me to stay at home with Lily, to earn while still being present for her. Lily is 12, but sometimes, when I look into her eyes, I see a maturity beyond her years. After school, she often comes to my desk, closes my laptop gently, and says, "Mom, that's enough. Now it's our time." We make tea together and sit on the balcony where the cool bay air carries a faint shimmer of the Golden Gate in the distance. Those small moments remind me why I fight so hard. I teach her little lessons about honesty, courage, and never confusing silence with weakness. My parents, Helen and Richard, never measured life in love. For them, it was always about image, reputation, and appearances. My younger sister, Jennifer, has always been their pride, the golden child. She is a polished influencer with a picture-perfect life and curated captions that the world admires. Me? I was always the shadow in the corner of family gatherings, the one they whispered about rather than celebrated. I've learned that sometimes you can be surrounded by people and still feel painfully alone. Yet Lily gives me reason to smile, even on the hardest days. Our routines are simple: school, trading, cooking, and evening walks, but they are filled with a love that no wealth or reputation can replace. She often says, "One day, Mom, we'll build something together that gives people hope." And I tell her that hope itself is a kind of wealth, one that no one can take away. Still, some memories leave scars. There are moments when I recall the times I was told I wasn't enough, my voice too small, my presence too insignificant. But I am no longer that woman. Today, I remind myself, I am Madison. I am a mother. I am a trader. And most of all, I am my own person. Perhaps soon life will test me again. Another gathering, another moment where the world will try to silence me. But this time, things will be different. I am not walking into it alone. Lily will be by my side, and together we know the truth has a voice, and once spoken, no one's reputation or spotlight can ever smother it. I grew up in a house where appearances mattered more than feelings. My mother, Helen, carried herself like a queen, always concerned about how neighbors, friends, or distant relatives would view her. My father, Richard, followed her lead, reinforcing the idea that image came first, even before love or fairness. In their eyes, children were trophies, one to display proudly, the other to hide away. That was my role, the hidden one. My younger sister, Jennifer, was the golden child. From an early age, she shined with the kind of charm my parents adored. She was showered with praise for everything: her smile, her outfits, even the way she walked into a room. Helen would clap her hands, saying, "Look at our Jennifer. She's going to make this family proud." Meanwhile, if I brought home good grades or showed any ambition, my parents brushed it aside as if my efforts were invisible. When I met my husband, they considered it an embarrassment. He was kind and hardworking, but not wealthy, not glamorous, not someone who could elevate the family name. I still remember Helen's sharp words: "You're wasting your life on someone ordinary, Madison. Don't come running back to us when it falls apart." For years, those words pierced me, but I stayed true to my choice because he loved me sincerely. And when the accident stole him from me, their silence was louder than any comfort. They didn't offer support. Instead, they muttered behind closed doors that I had brought this life upon myself. Jennifer, on the other hand, only rose higher. She built an empire out of her image, climbing to become a popular influencer. The world adored her curated posts, perfect lighting, glamorous trips, and captions that made her life look like a fairy tale. My parents paraded her success like it was their own crown jewel. In every photo, they stood proudly by her side, smiling for the cameras as if the spotlight justified their parenting. But behind all that glitter, there was always a shadow cast over me. At family gatherings, my seat felt colder. Conversations seemed to close when I entered the room. It wasn't just neglect, it was rejection wrapped in polite smiles. Lily saw it too. Sometimes she whispered, "Mom, why do they look at Aunt Jennifer like that and not at you?" My heart broke a little every time, but I told her the truth gently, that some people value shiny things, while others value real things. And we were real. Still, as much as I tried to ignore them, I couldn't escape the feeling that sooner or later, Jennifer and my parents would drag me into their stage once more. Their obsession with appearances had no boundaries, and I knew it was only a matter of time before their world collided with mine again, forcing me to confront the family I had spent years protecting Lily from. It was a gray Wednesday afternoon when the invitation arrived. A sleek white envelope slipped through my door, embossed with golden lettering. At first, I thought it was some sort of advertisement, another piece of mail trying too hard to look important. But when I opened it, my chest tightened. "You are cordially invited to celebrate the engagement of Jennifer and Matthew," it read. The location was printed in elegant script, the Golden Gate Rooftop, San Francisco. For a long moment, I just stared at the words. My sister's engagement. The grand party. The same rooftop where city lights painted the skyline like a postcard. An event that would certainly be the talk of the town. Lily peeked over my shoulder. An engagement party? For Aunt Jennifer? Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Are we going, Mom?" I didn't answer immediately. My mind was already swimming with memories. Every cold glance, every cutting remark, every time Helen made me feel like an outsider in my own family. I could practically hear her voice telling me how out of place I'd look among the rich and polished guests. But Lily's excitement was pure. She rushed to her closet, pulling out her lavender dress, holding it up against herself with a bright smile. "I want to wear this. Do you think Aunt Jennifer will like it?" The question pierced me deeper than she realized. Aunt Jennifer, the same woman who had ignored us at family dinners, who barely acknowledged Lily's existence unless it suited her image. But how could I crush my daughter's enthusiasm? I forced a smile. "You'll look beautiful, sweetheart. That dress is perfect." Inside, though, I wrestled with dread. I didn't want to step foot in that world again. The world where every detail of my life would be measured, weighed, and mocked.
But this wasn't just about me.
Lily deserved the chance to feel included, even if only for one night. Over the next few days, I prepared quietly. I ironed Lily's dress, polished her shoes, and tried not to show how my stomach knotted tighter with each passing hour. For myself, I chose something simple, a navy blue dress I had worn before. Nothing flashy, nothing to draw attention. I wasn't going to compete with Jennifer's spotlight. The night before the event, Lily came to me while I worked on my laptop. She placed her small hand on mine and whispered, "Mom, don't worry. We'll have fun. It's just a party." Her words were meant to comfort me, but in truth, they echoed like a warning. Because I knew my family's parties were never just parties. They were stages, and I was about to be pushed onto one whether I liked it or not. The evening air carried a crisp chill as Lily and I stepped out of the cab. Ahead of us, the Golden Gate rooftop glittered like something out of a magazine spread. The building rose high above the city, its glass walls catching the last rays of the setting sun. Inside, music drifted upward, mingling with the laughter of guests who already filled the rooftop terrace. Lily's hand tightened around mine as her eyes widened. "Mom, it's so beautiful." And it was, at least on the surface. Strings of golden lights hung from every corner, white roses lined the tables, and the San Francisco skyline stretched out like a jeweled curtain. About 300 guests filled the space, dressed in gowns and tuxedos, sipping champagne as if this were the most important night of their lives. I smoothed my dress, took a deep breath, and guided Lily inside. Almost instantly, I felt the shift. Conversations paused. Eyes flicked toward us, some curious, others judgmental. A few smiles were polite, but most were tight, rehearsed, as though our presence had disrupted a carefully curated scene. Then came the inevitable. Helen appeared, her pearl necklace gleaming, her expression sharper than the diamond pinned at her collar. "Madison," she said in a tone that could cut glass. "You came." Her gaze slid to Lily, who stood beside me, clutching her lavender dress nervously. "And you brought her." The words weren't warm. They were an accusation wrapped in civility. "Good evening, Mother," I said evenly, refusing to flinch. Helen's lips curved into something between a smile and a sneer. "Try not to draw too much attention tonight. This is Jennifer's evening, after all." Richard was nearby, drink in hand, giving me the same disapproving once-over he had my whole life. He didn't speak, but his silence spoke volumes. "You don't belong here." Jennifer, of course, was the star. She floated across the floor in her glittering gown, her fiancé Matthew at her side. Cameras followed her every move, guests snapping photos, posting stories, hashtags already buzzing online. She spotted us, and for a fleeting second, her polished smile faltered. Then it snapped back into place, broader than before, as if to prove she wasn't rattled. "Madison, you made it," she said loudly, leaning in for an air kiss that never touched my cheek. "And Lily, how grown up you look." Her words dripped with sweetness, but her eyes betrayed her. This wasn't welcome, it was performance. Lily whispered to me, "Mom, everyone's staring." I squeezed her hand. "Ignore them, sweetheart. Just smile." But inside, I felt it building, that familiar weight pressing on my chest. This wasn't just a party. It was a stage, and my family had already decided their roles. Jennifer was the star, my parents the proud directors, and me? I was the unwanted extra, dragged into the spotlight only to be reminded that I didn't belong. And I had a terrible feeling the curtain had only just risen. The music swelled, and the laughter of 300 guests echoed across the rooftop as waiters carried trays of sparkling drinks. Lily stood close to me, her small hand wrapped tightly around my fingers, her wide eyes scanning the dazzling room. For a moment, I let myself believe we could get through the night unnoticed, invisible in the sea of glittering gowns and polished shoes. But invisibility never lasted long in my family. Helen appeared again, this time moving closer, her perfume strong, her eyes colder than the evening air. "You're standing too near the main floor," she snapped in a low voice. "This area is for Jennifer's photographs. Move back." Before I could respond, she shifted her sharp gaze to Lily. "And you, stop clutching at your mother like a lost child. You're making a scene." Lily's lips trembled, but she didn't answer. I bent to reassure her, but it was too late. Helen's hand shot out, and with shocking force, she shoved Lily backward. "Mom," I gasped, reaching out too late. The push sent Lily stumbling. To keep from falling, she flung out her arms and caught hold of the nearest thing she could, Jennifer's shimmering gown. Her small fingers clutched at the delicate fabric with all her weight. The sound tore through the room like a gunshot. "Rear up." Gasps erupted from the crowd as Jennifer spun around, eyes wide, looking down at the long tear running through her designer dress. She froze for only a heartbeat before her face twisted with fury. "You ruined it," she screamed, her voice carrying over the music, silencing the laughter, silencing everything. Lily shook her head, tears already filling her eyes. "I didn't mean..." But Jennifer didn't let her finish. With rage boiling over, she raised her hand and slapped Lily across the face, hard, so hard the sound cracked through the rooftop like a whip. The entire room went still. Glasses froze in midair. 300 guests stood in absolute silence, watching a 12-year-old girl stagger back from the blow. My heart stopped. Then fire surged through me. I rushed forward, pulling Lily into my arms, her small body trembling against me. "Don't you ever touch my daughter again," I shouted, my voice shaking but fierce. Jennifer's face flushed red, her chest heaving, but her eyes flicked nervously to the rows of guests, to the dozens of phones raised, recording, capturing every second. Helen's voice cut through the tension, sharp and unapologetic. "This is your fault, Madison. Always dragging us down. Always bringing your chaos into Jennifer's spotlight." Richard appeared, scowling, his drink forgotten. "Take her out," he barked at the nearby staff. And just like that, security approached. Guests whispered. Phones stayed high. Lily sobbed into my chest as I was ushered toward the exit, humiliation burning through every vein. But even as the doors closed behind us, I knew something had shifted. For once, it wasn't my word against theirs. This time, there were hundreds of witnesses and dozens of cameras that had captured the truth. The night air outside the rooftop felt colder than I expected. I wrapped my arms around Lily as she cried into my shoulder, her small body still trembling from the shock of Jennifer's hand. I wanted to believe I could shield her from the cruelty we had just endured, but the sting of that moment clung to both of us like a wound that refused to close. "Mom," she whispered through tears, "why does Grandma hate me so much?" My throat tightened. I wanted to tell her it wasn't hate, just blindness, but lying to her had never been an option. I brushed the hair from her face, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "It's not you, Lily. It's them. None of this is your fault." Back home, I helped her change into her pajamas and tucked her into bed, though sleep was far from either of us. Hours later, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah, my old friend, who had also attended the party. "Madison, I recorded everything. You need to see this." I opened the file, and there it was, every second in painful clarity. Helen shoving Lily. Jennifer's dress tearing. Jennifer's hand rising and striking my daughter. My parents' cold expressions. The silence of 300 guests as my child stood humiliated in the middle of a glittering stage. My hands shook as I held the phone. Watching it again felt like living the nightmare twice, but now the nightmare had evidence. I turned to find Lily awake, standing in the doorway of my room, eyes wide and red from crying. "Mom," she whispered, "was it really all recorded?" "Yes, sweetheart." I swallowed hard. "People will see what happened. They'll know the truth." She hesitated, then straightened her shoulders with a courage that startled me. "Then I want to tell them my part too." I frowned softly. "Lily, you don't have to." But she shook her head.
"No."
"I want to." We set the phone on the table, and she sat in front of the camera, her cheeks still marked faintly from Jennifer's slap. Her voice wavered at first, but then steadied. "My name is Lily," she said clearly, "and I am 12 years old. Tonight, at my Aunt Jennifer's engagement party, my grandmother pushed me. I tried not to fall, and I held onto my aunt's dress. It ripped, and then she slapped me. I didn't mean to ruin anything. I was just scared. I don't understand why they treat me and my mom this way. We didn't do anything wrong." By the time she finished, my tears were unstoppable. I hugged her tightly, whispering how proud I was of her. That night, for the first time, I realized my daughter wasn't just my child. She was my partner in truth, braver than I ever imagined. As I held her, the video file sat waiting, glowing on the screen, carrying within it the power to expose the family who had spent years silencing me. And I knew, deep down, that once the world saw it, nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, the world outside our apartment felt strangely quiet, as though San Francisco itself was holding its breath. Lily sat beside me at the kitchen table, her cereal untouched. My phone buzzed nonstop, and every vibration tightened the knot in my stomach. Sarah had uploaded the video. Within hours, it spread like wildfire. At first, it was a few shares from her friends, then hundreds, then thousands. By noon, it was on major social media platforms, circulating with captions like, "Child assaulted at glamorous engagement party" and "Influencer Jennifer's dark truth exposed." And then the hashtag appeared. #JusticeForLily. I watched it climb the trending list, the words glowing back at me from countless posts. Strangers from around the country were sharing Lily's brave statement, praising her courage, condemning Jennifer, and calling out my parents for their cruelty. Some even created side-by-side clips. Jennifer's flawless online persona next to the raw footage of her striking a 12-year-old girl. The contrast was damning. Lily peeked over my shoulder. People, they believe me? I hugged her tightly.
Yes, sweetheart. They do.
They see you now. But not everyone took it kindly. Jennifer released a video that evening. Dressed in soft colors, her makeup light, her voice dripping with rehearsed sorrow, she said, "I'm deeply sorry for what happened. It was a misunderstanding in the heat of the moment. Family can be complicated, and I hope we can heal privately."
The internet wasn't buying it.
Comments flooded beneath her video. "You slapped a child. This isn't a mistake, it's abuse." Healing privately? After humiliating her publicly, brands began pulling their sponsorships. Magazines deleted her features. Influencer pages unfollowed her. One by one, the glittering towers of her image collapsed. Meanwhile, the support for Lily only grew stronger. Advocacy groups reached out, offering help. News outlets contacted me, asking for interviews. Overnight, our small apartment became the epicenter of a storm far bigger than I had ever imagined. Lily scrolled through the messages with wide eyes. Some were from kids her age, saying things like, "You're so brave. I wish I could stand up like you." Others came from mothers, promising that she wasn't alone. I sat there, overwhelmed, realizing that for once in my life, the truth wasn't hidden. It wasn't whispered in dark corners or buried under polite smiles. It was out there, undeniable, unstoppable, and roaring louder with each passing hour. And though fear still twisted in my chest, another feeling began to rise, something I hadn't felt in years: hope. Because now, the world wasn't just watching Jennifer's perfect life. It was watching mine. And for the first time, I didn't feel invisible. By the third day, the video was no longer just a trending topic. It had become a movement. Lawyers, journalists, and child protection groups spoke openly about the incident, demanding accountability. And that was when Victoria, a child advocacy attorney, reached out. She met me in a quiet cafe near the bay, her briefcase heavy with papers, her tone steady and firm. "Madison, I've seen the footage. This is not just a scandal, it's a crime. Your daughter was assaulted in public, and your mother's behavior also qualifies as child endangerment. If you're willing, we can take this to court." My hand shook slightly as I held my coffee. For years, I had swallowed my pain, convinced no one would listen. Now here was someone not only listening but prepared to fight. I looked at Lily, who sat beside me coloring quietly, her cheeks still faintly marked from Jennifer's slap. I nodded.
Yes.
"We'll fight." Within a week, Victoria had filed charges. Jennifer was charged with child assault. Helen and Richard faced charges of neglect and enabling abuse. A restraining order was granted, preventing them from approaching Lily or me. The day we walked into the courthouse, whispers followed us like shadows. Reporters swarmed the steps, cameras flashing as they called Jennifer's name, then mine. Jennifer arrived in designer sunglasses, her posture stiff, her once proud fiancé nowhere in sight. My parents trailed behind her, their faces grim, their dignity cracking under the weight of public shame. Inside, the courtroom felt colder than any rooftop ever had. I sat with Victoria on one side, Lily's small hand locked in mine. Across from us sat the family I was born into, now transformed into strangers by their own choices. Officer Miller, assigned as a child welfare officer, testified first. He confirmed that after reviewing the video and interviewing Lily, the evidence clearly supported charges of abuse. His steady voice carried weight, reminding everyone that this wasn't gossip, it was law. Then came the footage itself. Played on a large screen, the rip of the dress echoed through the silent courtroom, followed by Jennifer's furious slap. Lily flinched, and I instinctively held her close, whispering that she was safe. Gasps filled the room as the jury and judge watched what the rest of the world had already seen. Jennifer's lawyer tried to spin it as an accident, a moment of stress, but Victoria rose with a calm fire in her voice. Stress does not excuse violence against a child. What we see here is not a mistake. It is a choice. When it was my turn to testify, I stood tall though my knees shook. I spoke not just of the slap, but of the years of neglect, the constant rejection, the way my parents built a pedestal for Jennifer while crushing me into silence. This wasn't the first time they tried to erase me, I said, voice breaking but strong. But this was the first time they tried to erase my daughter. And I will not allow that. For the first time, Helen's face cracked. She looked at me, eyes wide, as though shocked I had finally spoken the words aloud. The gavel came down with the promise of a trial ahead, and as I walked out of that courtroom, Lily by my side, I felt something shift inside me. For years, I had been the quiet one. But now, my voice was not just mine, it was evidence. A week after the first hearing, I was surprised to see Matthew's name flash across my phone screen. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. After all, he had stood beside Jennifer for years, smiling in photos, applauding her carefully curated life. But curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. His voice was steady but tired. Madison, can we meet? There are things you should know. We met at a quiet diner away from the city's buzz. Matthew looked different, less polished, his suit replaced with a simple shirt, his expression heavy. He didn't waste time. Jennifer wasn't marrying me for love, he admitted. It was a business deal. A way to secure sponsorships, merge audiences, and keep her image untouchable. I found the contracts. I found the prenup drafts. Everything was planned to the last detail, except for what happened on that rooftop. I stared at him, anger and pity colliding. And you went along with it? I was blind, he said, his voice cracking. But after that night, after what she did to Lily, I couldn't stay. I ended it. The engagement is off. The contracts are canceled. I won't be part of her empire anymore. For the first time, I saw him not as Jennifer's accessory, but as another person caught in her web. He handed me a folder, documents, emails, proof of her manipulations. Use this if you need to. People should know who she really is. Later that week, there was an unexpected confrontation. My parents had requested a private family meeting, insisting it was time to settle things before the trial ruined them further. Against Victoria's advice, I went, because some truths needed to be spoken to their faces. The meeting was held in a sterile conference room at a hotel. Helen and Richard sat stiffly at one end, Jennifer beside them in dark glasses, her posture radiating defiance. Helen spoke first. Madison, this has gone too far. Drop the case. Families resolve things quietly. I laughed bitterly. Quietly? Like all the times you silenced me? Like the night you shoved my daughter and watched her get slapped in front of 300 people? That kind of quiet. Jennifer slammed her hand on the table. You ruined everything. You embarrassed me in front of the world. No, Jennifer, I said firmly. You embarrassed yourself. And the world just saw what I've known all along. The door opened suddenly, and Matthew walked in. My parents stiffened. Jennifer's face drained of color. He placed a stack of papers on the table. I'm here to make sure no one forgets the truth. Jennifer, your games are over. For the first time, silence fell over the room, not because I was invisible, but because I was undeniable. I stood, Lily's hand in mine, Sarah at my side, Matthew now backing me. I looked each of them in the eye. You wanted me small, voiceless, erased. But now the world sees you. And I will never let you erase my daughter. The silence that followed wasn't victory yet, but it was the beginning of the end. The trial stretched on for weeks, each hearing peeling back another layer of the life my family had tried to keep polished. The evidence was undeniable. The video, Lily's testimony, Sarah's recording, and now Matthew's documents. For once, my voice was not just a cry in the dark. It was backed by truth the world could see. The judge's verdict was clear. Jennifer was found guilty of child assault and sentenced to community service, fines, and mandatory counseling, with a criminal record that would haunt her polished career. Helen and Richard were held accountable for neglect and enabling abuse. While their punishment was lighter, their reputation was destroyed. The people they valued most, the public, turned their backs on them. As the gavel came down, I felt a wave of release wash over me. It wasn't joy, it was relief. like exhaling after holding my breath for years. I looked down at Lily beside me, her head held high, her eyes shining with pride. She wasn't just my daughter anymore, she was my partner in resilience. Life after the trial wasn't suddenly perfect, but it was new.
Free.
For the first time, we were not defined by what my parents thought of us, but by what we built together. That's when Lily and I launched Madison and Lily's studio. It started small, just an idea between us, creating digital projects, designs, and content that reflected our values of truth and strength. But within months, the support we had gained during the viral storm carried over, and people embraced our work. The studio became more than a business. It became our healing ground. We worked side by side, laughing, learning, and sometimes crying, but always moving forward. Every order we completed, every project we shared, felt like reclaiming a piece of ourselves that had once been dismissed. One evening, as we sat in our little workspace with the soft hum of the city outside, Lily looked at me and said, "Mom, I feel safe now." And I feel seen. Tears filled my eyes. I reached over, squeezed her hand, and whispered, "That's all I ever wanted for you." Standing there in the glow of our new beginning, I realized something profound. Justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about transformation. My parents and Jennifer had lost their image, their power, their stage. But Lily and I had gained something stronger. We had built a life on truth, on love, and on the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughter. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a shadow. I felt like myself, whole, strong, and finally free. Months passed, and the noise of the scandal slowly faded. Jennifer's name still appeared in the news now and then, but always tied to the fall of her empire, not its rise. Helen and Richard withdrew from public life, their once busy social calendar now empty. Their silence no longer carried power, it was just silence. For Lily and me, life took on a different rhythm. Madison and Lily's studio grew steadily, supported by people who had followed our story and believed in what we stood for. Clients praised our honesty, our creativity, and the way we poured ourselves into every project. It wasn't just work, it was proof that we could turn pain into purpose. Every morning, I still rose early, opened my laptop, and studied the trading charts. Trading remained a part of who I was, a reminder of the discipline that had carried me through dark times. But now, it wasn't my only source of strength. The studio, Lily's laughter, and the peace in our home gave me something greater than financial stability. They gave me freedom. One quiet evening, Lily and I sat on the balcony overlooking the bay. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. She leaned against me, holding a sketchbook filled with ideas for our next project. "Mom," she said softly, "do you think people will forget what happened?" I thought about it for a moment. "Some will," I admitted. "But that doesn't matter. What matters is that we won't. We'll remember, not to stay angry, but to stay strong." She smiled, her 12-year-old wisdom shining through. "I like that. Staying strong." I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her close. "You're the reason I stayed strong, Lily. You're my hope, my proof that love outshines everything else." The city lights flickered on, one by one, like stars scattering across the skyline. For the first time in years, I felt no weight on my chest, no fear of being erased. I wasn't the forgotten daughter, the invisible sister, or the family's shame. I was Madison, a mother, a trader, a creator, and a woman who had finally claimed her place in the world. And as Lily rested her head on my shoulder, whispering about all the things we would build together, I knew this was the true ending. Not in a courtroom, not in a headline, but right here, in the quiet, where peace finally lived. Looking back now, it feels surreal how everything unfolded. The rooftop humiliation, the viral storm, the courtroom battles. For so long, I had carried the belief that my voice would never matter, that my place in the family was fixed in silence. But the truth proved louder than all their polished lies. Justice didn't just happen in court. It happened in the way Lily found her courage, in the way strangers stood beside us, and in the way I finally refused to be erased. My parents and Jennifer lost the illusion of control they had built their lives upon, and I gained something far more valuable: freedom and dignity. Life today isn't about chasing their approval. It's about waking up to a home filled with warmth, laughter, and hope. Trading still gives me focus, but Madison and Lily's studio gives me joy. Together, Lily and I create something honest, something real. Our story resonates with people because it isn't perfect. It's proof that brokenness can be rebuilt into something beautiful. Sometimes, when I walk past the Golden Gate and see the city lights reflecting on the water, I think of that night on the rooftop. The pain, the shame, the slap that changed everything. But instead of bitterness, I feel gratitude. Because without that breaking point, we might never have discovered how strong we truly are. I am Madison. I am 35 years old. I am a mother to the bravest girl I know. And no matter what life throws at us next, I know one thing for certain: we will never be invisible again. It has been almost a year since the night that changed everything. The headlines have long since moved on. The noise has quieted. But in our little apartment overlooking the bay, life feels brighter, steadier, and freer. Lily has grown into her 12th year with a confidence that amazes me. She no longer walks with her shoulders hunched or her eyes down. She holds her head high, knowing the world once heard her voice and respected her courage. At school, she's found new friends who admire her bravery. Teachers speak of her resilience, and she talks about one day helping other kids who feel unseen. Sometimes, when she sits at her desk with her notebook spread out, sketching ideas for our studio projects, I see not just my daughter but a partner, someone whose vision pushes me forward as much as I guide her. Madison and Lily Studio has become more than I ever dreamed. What started as a way to heal has turned into a thriving space where people come to us for designs, ideas, and digital campaigns rooted in honesty. Clients tell us they chose us because we represent truth and strength. Each project we deliver carries a piece of our story, the resilience of a mother and daughter who refuse to stay silent. Trading remains part of my mornings, a practice that keeps me grounded, but the studio has given my life purpose in a way numbers never could. It has given Lily and me something we built together, brick by brick, word by word, design by design. Some evenings, when we finish our work, we step out onto the balcony with cups of tea. The Golden Gate glows in the distance, a reminder of both pain and triumph. Lily often leans against me and says, "Mom, we turned something terrible into something good, didn't we?" And I smile, holding her close. "Yes, sweetheart.
We did.
And we'll keep doing it together." Because this is only the beginning of our story. The world once saw us as victims, but now we define ourselves as creators, survivors, and dreamers. And as the city hums around us, I know in my heart that no matter what comes next, we will face it side by side, mother and daughter, Madison and Lily, writing our new chapter together. Thank you for watching this story until the end. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to life.